Thank you for coming out today to hear about one of my favorite topics, transportation. For those of you I have not met yet, my name is Garen Coleman, and I currently serve as the Assistant County Manager for Forsyth County. Transportation is a key topic for every community, but especially in a thriving and growing community like ours. I would like to use my time today to highlight several of our transportation and mobility initiatives happening within our county. But before I talk about specifics, I would like to talk a little bit about funding. As you may know, no community can seek to leverage outside federal and state funds without local tax dollars to use as match. Typically, these match funds are in the range of 20% of total project cost, but it can be much higher. Outside funds allow communities to jumpstart larger scale projects that could not be possible with only local funding sources. So partnerships with state and federal agencies are an essential part of any major transportation initiatives. Historically, the county has used both a bond and special purpose local option sales tax, or SPLOST, to provide these matching funds and to fund our own local projects. To this end, I would like to thank the residents of Forsyth County for their support of the SPLOST referendum, which passed with nearly a 65% approval rate in November of 2018. The passage of SPLOST 8 will extend the 1% sales tax for another 6 years and will raise another $274 million over that time period. Of this amount, $153 million will fund county-specific transportation projects. It will also fund another $13 million in transportation-specific projects inside the city of Cumming. So thank you. So let's talk about some of our major road widening projects. As previously mentioned, the third lane of Georgia 400 was completed. This will add approximately 26 lane miles to our road network. Additionally, the road widenings for Old Atlanta Road and State Route 20 were completed. This added another roughly 12 lane miles to our network. The next group of projects that I would like to highlight are projects that are currently under construction. There are 5 projects in this category. These include Bethel View Road, which is a joint project with the Georgia Department of Transportation, as well as county-funded projects along Brookwood Road, Sharon Road, and Union Hill Road. All these projects should be substantially complete later this year, with most opening to traffic in late summer or early fall. I do want to point out that these dates are, of course, weather dependent. This is an important point in Georgia, as we experienced one of our wettest years on record last year. And quite frankly, it wreaked havoc on our construction schedules. The final widening project under active construction is Pilgrim Mill Road. Currently, bridge demolition, grading, and utility relocations are underway for this project. And we anticipate that it should be substantially complete in the next 18 months. The next group of projects are scheduled to be let for construction this summer, with construction starting in the next 6 to 12 months. There are 3 projects in this category. The first of these is the widening along State Route 369, which was mentioned earlier. This project will go from State Route 9 to State Route 306, along with the associated new grade-separated interchange at Georgia 400, exit 18. These 2 projects will be let as one contract, and we have planned to award them this fall. The next project is the extension of Ronald Reagan from McFarland to Majors Road. This is a new facility and will connect the previously constructed sections of Ronald Reagan and will provide a parallel route to Georgia 400 once completed. The county received a State Road and Tollway Authority grant in the amount of $1.5 million for this project. So we are also very thankful for that partnership as well. Similarly, we will advertise the next phases of Old Atlanta Road, which will connect to the previously widened segments completed this past year. The final group of projects I will highlight, and which are in various stages of preliminary design and/or right-of-way acquisition. There are 3 projects in this group. The first is the interchange at Georgia 400 and McGinnis Ferry Road. This interchange is another example of a partnership project with the county and GDOT, and is currently expected to let for construction in April 2020. As an aside, we are currently working with GDOT's project management team that is delivering the Major Mobility Improvement Projects, or MMIP, to coordinate the interchange work with the State Route 400 express lanes. The Express Lane project will add 2 variable toll lanes in each direction from I-285 to McGinnis Ferry Road, as well as a single lane from there up to McFarland. Construction for this project will move forward in 2021 with a proposed completion date in 2024. Construction timeframes will obviously overlap with the interchange work, so it is a key that we coordinate on the front end to minimize throwaway during construction. In close proximity to the interchange is the second project in this category, the widening of McGinnis Ferry Road, from the new interchange just discussed to Sargent Road. Preliminary plans are being developed, and the Board of Commissioners has recently reaffirmed the county's commitment of $18 million toward this important regional project. This is being developed through a partnership with GDOT in the cities of Johns Creek and Alpharetta. The final longer-range project I would like to highlight, and is another partnership project with the Georgia Department of Transportation, is the widening of State Route 371, also known as Post Road. The project is in the design phase and is divided into 2 segments. The section from State Route 9 to Kelly Mill Road is slated to begin right-of-way acquisition in 2022, with construction programmed for 2024. The northern section is currently slated for farther out, but we are designing the project as one so that it is ready to go should right-of-way funds and construction funding become available sooner. While adding capacity often takes several years or more to complete, it is important to also look at efficiencies that can be gained through technology, such as signal timing and coordination, as well as in providing incident management to accidents and other roadside issues. One technology-based initiative through GDOT is the Regional Traffic Operations Program, or RTOP. We love acronyms in transportation work. Under this program, key corridors are identified for signal timing coordination along with associated upgrades in hardware and software in an effort to improve traffic flow, reduce idling, and improve safety. Currently within Forsyth County, we have 2 corridors that are managed through the RTOP program. The first is along State Route 141 and is coordinated from State Route 8 in Tucker, Georgia to Georgia 400. The second is State Route 20, which is managed from Lawrenceville to Georgia 400. By having the traffic signals coordinated, we can maximize the efficiency of vehicles through the corridor, and it allows us to get the most out of the existing lanes we have. We will certainly look for opportunities to expand to other major corridors within the county in coming years. A recent addition to the incident management capabilities of the county is the Traffic Response Vehicle, or TRV, by the Sheriff's Office. The TRV will patrol high-traffic county roads during weekday rush hours and will provide roadside help for accidents and stalls in an effort to more quickly and efficiently remove potential roadblocks. The truck will operate much like the Hero trucks you may have seen. However, unlike Hero trucks, the county TRV will be staffed with sworn deputies and will be enforcing traffic laws and issuing citations, I am told. So remember, don't text and drive. The last area that I'd like to touch on is public transportation. Specifically, I would like to highlight 2 public transportation services currently occurring within the county. The first is the Express Commuter Bus Service, which is under the State Road and Tollway Authority's purview. Express service offers buses and van pools on 27 routes across 12 counties within Metro Atlanta. This service provides an estimated 1.8 million passenger trips per year, while removing around 1.5 million vehicles from our roadways. Within Forsyth County, there are 3 bus routes operating from 2 park and ride lots. In fiscal year 2017, a total of 87,000 passenger boardings occurred on these 3 routes, thus eliminating thousands of potential single-occupancy vehicular trips from our road network. Forsyth County partners with CERTA in helping to fund this operation through an annual allocation of federal funding authorized to the county. A second public transportation service provided within the county is our Dial-A-Ride program. This is a demand-based point-to-point service and operates on a first-come, first-served basis. Currently, we have 8 ADA accessible vans to provide these trips. In 2018, this fleet of vehicles, along with our dedicated men and women, provided nearly 21,000 total trips and covered around 260,000 miles driven. A large percentage of these trips are provided to the elderly and disabled. Later this year, the county will advertise a request for proposals to undertake our first comprehensive public transportation plan. We anticipate the study will take approximately 12 to 14 months to complete, and we'll look at our existing level of service in regard to public transportation, as well as our future needs. Additionally, we will look at the possible funding avenues to further increase these much-needed services. There will be numerous opportunities for public input, so please be sure to watch for these upcoming meetings. As you can tell, addressing transportation needs of a community can be a complicated and multifaceted issue. Partnerships are a key element to addressing our needs. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to share some of our recent accomplishments and programs with you today. And now, I know that Mayor Troy Brumbelow is looking forward to sharing information on transportation projects within the City of Cumming. Mayor?
I'll be real brief. We've figured out how to fix all the problem, traffic and coming. We're going to build a tunnel. We're going to start next week. Now, in all seriousness, we've got two projects that we're real excited about. And this is how we saved $3 million on our budget last year. We used Sharpies. But what this is showing is, what is it showing? I don't know what they even put up there. It looks confusing. But anyway, what we're doing, we've got it engineered, and we're about to put out for bid a road connecting Castleberry Road at our fairgrounds over to Veterans Memorial, where the Napa store is. And then we have a future development that's planned, a mixed-use development that would then, the developer would then at that point extend the road from Veterans over to Buford Dam. So you'd be able to go Castleberry Road all the way to the lake. Where we think that's going to be a big benefit is people going around the square during rush hour traffic. It's going to enable them to bypass most of the square. And then we've got some other issues downtown, left-hand turns where there's no turn lane, and we'll eliminate that. We think that'll really help. Let's see if this other slide makes that. There we go. That's the road I just talked about. But the other one is extending Sawney Drive, where it hits Highway 9, going over, and this would be a joint venture with a future development that would connect Pilgrim Mill Road to Sawney Drive. And that could really become a true bypass around the city. You'd be able to go from Highway 20 all the way to 400 at Pilgrim Mill. So with the counties widening down there, and then there is that potential the state could widen Sawney Drive, you really could have a good four-lane bypass at that point. Well, those are the two big projects that we're about to be undertaking, and we think will help some traffic. We're a city of 6,000, but we get what sometimes seems like 250,000 cars a day. So we're doing the little bits that we can to help, and thanks for having me.
Thank you all very much, and thank you to Forsyth County and all of our sponsors. My name's James McCoy. I work for all of you as the Chamber President, and we are thrilled to have three of Georgia's most influential decision makers on our stage today, and they have a huge impact on our lives every single day. And I'm very pleased to have them here with us and joining us. From the left, Commissioner, yes, your left, Commissioner Russell McMurray from the Georgia Department of Transportation. Thank you very much for being back with us again this year. Chris Tomlinson, who must have the largest business card I've ever seen because he's the Executive Director of the Georgia Regional Transit Authority and State Tollway Authority and leads the ATL. And we're very glad to have you with us. Thank you. And our very own Representative Kevin Tanner is here, representing several districts in the north part of our county, or several precincts, rather, in the north part of our county. Is a Georgia State House of Representative with District 9, and serves as chairman of the House Transportation Committee. And thank you very much, Representative, for being with us. I also, we had someone pop in, I think Kevin was already up here doing introductions, but we had someone pop in who's joined us as well, another elected official that I wanted to recognize. State Representative Vance Smith from Columbus, Georgia, District 133, Pine Mountain. So thank you very much, Vance, for being with us. We're very, very pleased to have you with us. So, the whole idea of today, I'm just going to, I've got a series of questions to lead us through, and I would, some are going to be directed to different parts of the group, but I'd like to ask all of you to participate in the questions and the conversation, because really the value of this is going to be the interaction that we have with the three of you. So thank you very much again for being here. I'm going to start, if I could, with a question for Representative Tanner, but I hope all three of you will respond. So transportation infrastructure is expensive. I think that's been well established. The state, through House Bill 170, created a pretty solid source of transportation dollars. So do you feel that bill and that source of funding is adequate? And if not, what changes do you see coming down the pike? And what do you think the future is around transportation funding? So, Representative, we'll start with you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we all know we have a great number of needs, especially in the area that I represent and those of you in the room represent here in North Georgia. House Bill 170 really was a turning point for transportation infrastructure funding in Georgia. We continue to lag further and further behind. Leadership of the House and Senate and Governor Dill at the time in taking a pretty bold step in creating House Bill 170, which created $1 billion or so more a year for infrastructure. It has been the most significant piece of transportation legislation probably in the history of the state. And that's allowing us to make improvements. It's allowing us to keep up. One of the things as we travel around the country, and I know Commissioner McMurray, it goes all around the country, and I've been several times to different places to speak to other general assemblies and other transportation departments about what we're doing right in Georgia. HB 170 is held up as a standard. One of the things that we also did in that legislation, and Senator Gooch is here, he was one of the authors of that bill in the Senate side, was created the electric car fee. We get a lot of slack about that, quite frankly, politically, but as we move more and more away from gas-burning vehicles, a lot of states are starting to see their funding mechanisms decrease because most states, like Georgia, has traditionally relied on motor vehicle fuel. So with the electric car fee being in there, that's going to help us stay ahead of the curve in the future. But I think the other thing that we've got to look at, and someone mentioned this earlier in their presentation, House Bill 930 that we passed last year that created the ATL also put a funding mechanism in for public transportation, public transit mobility, that I know as you do your study over the next couple of years, you'll be taking a look at that. So I think we're well on the path to success through House Bill 170, through 930, and with the options we've given to local governments through both T-Splosh for transportation profits and through Transit Splosh for transit mobility projects. So I think we're on the way. We can always use more money. I'm just not sure how much more the taxpayers would be willing to give us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add in. Thanks. And yeah, great overview on 170. It is sort of the national standard. And as we look forward, I think Georgia is extremely well positioned with what the Funding Act did back in 2015. As the chairman just said, and as Garen said, there's always more projects than there are money, and I think we all understand that. So you have to be strategic in how we use our dollars. I feel like we're trying to do that in a very efficient way. But I think we have to be aware of what's happened federally. Is the federal funding act ends next year, and so that's something that we have to watch. And Congress will have to take action, really probably starting this summer. Be focusing ahead so that the federal part, which is still a big part of our budget, it's about 40%, of our budget to do transportation projects is very important. So we have to see that. Georgia's model, again, of HB 170 is very different than a lot of states, of where the excise user fee basically for per gallon of gas that we use, or if you have an electric vehicle, there's an annual rate, actually keeps up with fuel efficiency and also keeps up with inflation due to some indexing that goes on. Now, that's the wonderful thing about the way this law was written, is that it keeps pace. Nationally, we haven't kept pace. It's been since 1993 that the federal excise tax on gas was established, which now has about 50% of the buying power it did in 1993. So federally, Congress is going to have to act like Georgia did back in 2015 to figure out what's the future. And as the chairman said, electric vehicles, you know, just look at the trajectory of where they are today from where they were a few years ago, and then where we're going in the future. Is all the OEMs are focusing on that, and not only just passenger cars, but for freight movement and fleet. There's a lot of work going on in the trucking industry too, because there's a much higher return on investment there than it is just in passenger cars. So that's a great lead-off, easy question. And if this goes south, let's just go back to the music. How about that? I like the music.
Very good.
I mean, just about everything's been said, but one thing I would add, as a state, we have been on a trajectory or path to be very forward-thinking in how we approach the gas tax and electric vehicles. And a lot of things that we're doing, we've been getting ready for this reauthorization conversation. So to your question, you know, there's never enough money. In the area of being able to attract and pull down federal transit administration dollars, we're always looking at ways to maximize what we can bring into Georgia. And so that's one of the areas where we still have a bit of a challenge. Garrett mentioned how the county flexes over some dollars for the express service that we provide. I think that's good, but we're going to continue to explore ways to attract more of those federal dollars to Georgia. And one of the ways we're going to do that under House Bill 930, we have the ability through the ATL to present a list of projects back to the General Assembly for them to consider the state issuing bonds to help provide state funding for these projects that it could impact Forsyth and others who are putting together these studies and plans. So we're always trying to think of the next step beyond what we already have in place to maintain Georgia's competitive edge.
Thank you. So transit is, particularly the last couple of months in North Atlanta, has been a hot topic and widely discussed and a great deal. And it seems like an appropriate time, Mr. Tomlinson. So if you would, please, could you explain what the ATL is, why it was created, and why Metro Atlanta needs the ATL?
Sure. So the ATL, the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, is a new state-level authority whose board is exclusively focused on this concept of transit. And one of the things, again, in our forward-looking view, transit in its broadest sense, yes, it's buses and trains, but it's also looking at these phenomena of rideshare, these scooters that 2 years ago literally didn't exist, and now in certain parts of the metro area, you can't take 2 steps without tripping over one. So as communities wrestle with how they will deal with those and address those, one of the things ATL is looking at, well, how does that fit into the mix? Because people are using them. So the ATL is a planning organization. It's not a substitute for either the operations at DOT or in those jurisdictions where MARTA operates or any of the operators. But how do we take a regional approach to this transit question? And by taking a regional approach, how do we keep our fingers on the pulse of what the citizens in different parts of the region want? So this is not about imposing something on any part of the region, but it's finding out, much like Forsyth is about to do a public transportation study, how can the state help leverage whatever it is a local jurisdiction decides they want or need, and bring the leverage that the state can bring to the table to help achieve those goals. So that's what the ATL is about. It's going to be regional planning and prioritization, because we've heard from the federal government that they don't want to see us with our internal jurisdictions, our different municipalities, competing against one another when we already have to compete on a national level. So how do we prioritize those projects on a regional basis? And that's what you're going to see the ATL doing. And the last thing I would say is we're also hoping to bring subject matter expertise in this area, so that when a county like Forsyth decides we want to look at our potential needs, we're hoping that we have the subject matter expertise on staff to help work with the counties to address it, because we're going to try to centralize that type of expertise at the ATL staff level, so that counties don't have to duplicate that within their budgets.
Let me just add in, Chris is doing a wonderful job there at ATL standing this up, and I always tell people that it's really like putting pieces of a puzzle together, a transportation puzzle, such that when you're finished, we may not know exactly what the box top looks like right now, but we're working together with all the jurisdictions, all the transit providers in the metropolitan area, such that all the pieces fit together, because it's a seamless customer experience, right? Nobody really cares from a citizen's point of view of which jurisdiction they're in or not. They just have a mobility challenge to be solved, and whether it's transit or automobile, we have to think about mobility different. Chris and I have been on a lot of panels, and there's this term out there now called mobility as a service. We have to think about that. He mentioned ride shares, Uber and Lyft, has really revolutionized how people get around, and that's only, 5 years old maybe? So we have to start thinking differently, and the ATL does that. It really brings the ability to bring all the partners to the table and start assembling the puzzle pieces such they all fit together, where previously it's just sort of had been jurisdiction by jurisdiction or authority by authority kind of approach. So it's really a comprehensive agency or authority that really can bring all entities together.
Yeah, I'll just to add, and both Russell and Chris do a great job. They work very well together and complement each other. This is a great opportunity for Forsyth County. When we created the ATL, Forsyth County is one of those counties that's involved and on that board and has representation on the ATL board. We also created a funding mechanism for a 1 cent transit splash if the county chooses to go that route. But one of the things we also did is we started having more conversations around how can we incorporate moving people other than just automobiles within our existing road infrastructure. So Russell and his department and Chris and his department have worked very well together with Georgia 400 express lanes that we're going to be extending up. And we put $100 million in the budget last year to help fund the bus rapid transit stations there. And that'll be a partnership between GDOT, SRTA, the ATL, and Fulton County to be able to fund those stations and to fund bus rapid transit within the express lanes. That's a great opportunity for Forsyth County to consider as you look at your long-range transit transportation plans, but extending that into your county where residents in Forsyth could get on a bus rapid transit bus at a parking facility, a nice terminal, and get to a certain location in Atlanta at a specific time, because those buses would be able to run at speed limit times throughout the day. So it's a great opportunity, both with the funding mechanism, state partnership, along with your neighbors. So we've got great things in store, I think, for regional transit transportation around this region and Forsyth counties that got a seat at the table.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner, if you will, we'll bring this down to a more local level. And recently there was a public meeting regarding Georgia Highway 400, State Route 400. Could you update us on what that was about and the outcome of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes right into what Chairman Tanner was just saying about 400 and the vision for expanding 400 for express lanes, but it's a shared vision with Chris and his team at SRTA, obviously from the tolling part of that, but also from the ATL part, of how do we provide transit options along 400 and as well as transportation options by using express lanes. So just recently, we conducted a round of public meetings starting here in Forsyth County and worked our way down to Sandy Springs. Had tremendous turnout at all those. A lot of interaction. I would say go to our website and check the video out if you hadn't seen it. It's an animation of what this future of the 400 corridor looks like. And we're working forward. We're at the beginning stages of this with the public involvement, doing the conceptual design work now. As Garen said in his presentation, in fiscal year 21, we would actually receive bids through a public-private partnership arrangement where we'll enter into a long-range contract with a developer. They'll bring some private finance to the table, and we'll just pay them each year for a project, very similar to a home loan, if you will, or paying your mortgage. And it really provides tremendous relief along the corridor for people that choose to use the express lanes. But Chris, through his hat at CERTA and us at GDOT, partnering on these express lanes jobs, and the kind of results that we've seen up on I-75 in Cobb, Cherokee County, when they come to 400 is just going to be amazing. We're seeing speed limits in the general purpose lanes up there being 10 to 15 miles an hour better than they were before, and you're not even using the express lanes, you're getting that benefit, and we've seen the time of congestion shrink by about an hour each day for the people not even using the express lane. So you get the benefit if you choose to use an express lane of somebody said speed limit a minute ago. Well, that's all we can report, but people are driving a little bit faster than the speed limit. Watch out for that new Forsyth County traffic vehicle out there with the blue lights. But you get that benefit. But the real part of this is, again, sort of a puzzle piece analogy, is 400 becomes the next puzzle piece that we lay down for a system of express lanes, I-75, State Route 400, I-85, and then ultimately 285 that begins a hub and a spoke kind of system. And inside that system is you can have, as Chairman Tanner was talking about, bus rapid transit. And that means a lot of things to different people, but I would just say think of it as a train on rubber tires. Just forget the rails. And it's running in the express lanes. And as he mentioned, the legislature appropriated $100 million in bonds that we're deploying to this project such that we can build the locations along 400 that there would be stations in the future that these vehicles could stop at. It's just like extending the MARTA up from North Springs all the way up to about Windward. I believe, Chris, is sort of we end up at the very north station being Windward. But to the chairman's point, that's an easy connect then on up here to Cumming, and Chris is already providing express service. So you get a secondary benefit, a huge benefit that really changes the way we look at mobility. So we're on a journey. I like to tell everybody that transportation is always a journey. Song "Life is a Highway." I like the songs. Life is a highway. It's a journey, and so we're starting through this process now. Again, getting public feedback, input. That goes into the metrics of the conceptual design that ultimately we get under contract sometime in 2021. And again, the outcome is really a game changer for mobility, that even though we come into Forsyth County, this goes right up to really about just right north of McFarland, right where the 6-lane picked up that just was completed, but goes further south, south down to about the North Springs MARTA station. So it will be a game changer. It's a journey. Open to traffic forecasts in 2024, so got a little ways to go. You just got rid of orange barrels on 400. Congratulations, you're going to get more orange barrels on 400. That's progress, but James, it's really an exciting time and really a transformative time, and it's really, again, will be the first glimpse of what mobility on the freeways around Metro Atlanta can look like with the transit component built right into it.
The official stance of the Chamber of Commerce is we're for orange barrels, so we love to see them. So thank you, and thank you for the investment of doing that. Sorry.
I'll just add a couple of things. Number one, I think the Commissioner hit on it, is bus rapid transit is a train on rubber tires. It's also very versatile for the future. One of the things I hear a lot from residents here in Forsyth County with the concern of extending heavy rail. Is this going to be outdated? Technology changes, et cetera. Bus rapid transit's much easier to adapt to new technologies, whether it's electric, whatever the case might be. So, and it's also much more cost effective to implement. It gives you the exact same result as rail would without the cost. Also, I think it's important to note that you get some pushback sometimes when we start talking about tolling lanes. The P3 projects, public-private partnerships, has been tremendous with the state, 75, 85, all the other corridors we've undertaken these projects. We could not have done those without the public and private component of that working together, and the tolling component that Chris takes care of for us at the state. So these are new lanes, new capacity. It's not tolling existing roads that you've already paid for. The other thing that's important, whether you use those lanes or not, just like the commissioner says, it's opening up that existing capacity so that you're getting 10, 15 miles an hour at higher speeds at rush hour times than we have traditionally. So they've been very successful. And I'll tell you, one of our state reps who was against the 75 toll road initially, and he lives up in Cobb County, has now publicly said that he was wrong because it's cut down on his commute time by 45 minutes, and that it has been a life-changing experience for the people in Cobb County. So it's going to be a little bit of growing pains, but this is going to be a huge thing for those of us who live and commute into Atlanta and North Georgia.
I'd say, when you talk about the project in Cobb County, when we start getting anonymous positive comments on social media, we're on to something. I know it's all downhill for me from here, but we're hoping to repeat that success on 400. And I really should have remarked, all these different titles I have, again, it's the state. It's not me trying to collect titles. It is, we are becoming multimodal in our thinking, or maybe even more, a better way of saying it is mode agnostic. The problems we're dealing with on 400 as we approach 285 are problems of urban congestion. And we know, and we've literally been talking about this for years, you're not going to be able to solve it with any one piece of the solution. It's going to take multiple components, be it the managed lanes or looking at bus rapid transit. And it has to start at the planning stage. We are literally saving the state money by thinking about these things up front. And now the component that we need is how do we bring everybody else into the conversations we've been having? And part of that key are these transit studies that so many other counties have embarked on and that Forsyth County is about to do.
Great, thank you. So the way that we live, the way that we work, the way that we even define community, the way that we define work now is so dramatically different. Looking ahead, for all three of you, what do you see, what are the changes that are coming in transportation policy? What do you want to see happen to address this incredible change that we're obviously continuing to endure and enjoy?
Well, I think, and a lot of the things that we've talked about hit on some of those. Commissioner Murray and Commissioner Thompson have done a great job implementing the policy that's been set forth, both through House Bill 170 and House Bill 930, and the opportunities that's there. But one of the things we started talking about, and I think one of them hit on this earlier, scooters. Things that we never thought about a few years ago. Electric bicycles, conversations. Representative Jones, I know, is out of town working, but we're sitting in his district. He talks a lot about air taxis. These are things that seem like Jetson conversations, but they're not only in the future, they're here today, and they're going to be coming very rapidly. So as a state and as policymakers in the General Assembly, we're going to have to take those issues up. We're going to have to determine how we're going to regulate those things. We started having a conversation around that with scooters this year and working with GMA, ACCG, and working with the industry, the scooter industry. They're a disruptive type of company, a disruptive technology where they just come in and they just dump scooters out and come in and really don't necessarily ask for permission, and then they get everybody hooked on using them, and then the city then has to try to figure out how they're going to handle it. We want to put some definitions in the code, but we're going to have to deal with that around air taxis and things that we cannot even sit here today and have no idea they're going to exist 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. So we realize every session we're going to be chasing sometimes after this new technology, but that's a positive thing. And the two commissioners here are doing an excellent job incorporating that technology and those changes into our overall transportation policy, and a true partnership through transit mobility and our traditional transportation. And the things that GDOT has done with signalization around the state and around the metro area are all things that help, that have a technology component, getting our roadways ready for autonomous technology, which we know is coming. A couple of years, I guess last, not this session, but session before last, we passed legislation around autonomous vehicles. So all of those things dealing with future technologies are things that we're going to have to continue to stay on top of as far as policy goes.
I would say, for me, it boils down to two main things, big data and technology. And those terms are thrown around all the time. So what I'm talking about specifically, we're going to try to harness and leverage more of this data, because what we want to deliver is everyone a faster trip. That's not always going to be possible. But a close second to that is a reliable trip. And what we mean by that, if you know if you leave Forsyth County at this time and you're trying to get to the airport, and 99% of the time you'll get to there at this specific time so you can plan your day, we're going to try to deliver that. We're also going to try to leverage technology to increase your choice. Just like these new lanes are new capacity and are adding a choice, maybe you want to pay the toll and take those lanes, maybe you don't. We want to put more of those choices at your fingertips. So literally later this week, like I'm meeting with Lyft and we're talking with Uber. They already have the technology. We're trying to explore innovative ways that maybe they can bring that technology to even our public transportation fleets. The dial-a-ride service that was mentioned earlier, imagine if we could get to the point where instead of just for specialized services, senior services, you could, much in the same way you order up Uber or Lyft, get to, what we call it microtransit, but get to a bus or other service to move you along your way. You could schedule it when you need it, and you make that choice when you need it. This is what being able to harness the data and harness the technology is going to allow us to do. And I think those are the changes that you'll see coming in the future.
Yeah, let me just add in. I always tell people it's really an exciting time in history in transportation, because we are in this new technology era of things that has been talked about. I remind myself, though, I have a picture from, I think it's 1915, of downtown Atlanta. In that picture, there are a lot of horses and mules and wagons, people riding horses. There are some bicycles. There's a lot of people walking. And if you look closely, you can find 1 or 2 vehicles. So I'm sure back then in 1915, those people in downtown Atlanta were saying, what in the world are this new technology of a horseless carriage, and what's it going to do? So I'm confident that we'll figure out what the future will be, but it's just a new time, and there's a lot of things going on, as Chris talked about, in the data side, because data is power, and if you can leverage that data and make people's trips better and plan better and can be more predictable, we all like that, to have that assurance. We're doing really some cool things right now. By about this time next year, Georgia will have the largest deployment of traffic signals that can talk to cars. We actually have several corridors now underway that the traffic signal will talk to the vehicle, and simply right now with the technology that exists is a simple iPad or a handheld device mounted, not where you're holding it, not where you're touching it, but in your vehicle. It will let you know how much time is left before the signal turns yellow or red. It'll also tell you what speed you need to go so that you can enter the signal at green, and that does not mean 100 miles an hour. It has algorithms to tell you if, with the legal speed limit. It also lets you know if there's a pedestrian that may be in the crosswalk. So there's a lot of safety built in, and I think that's one of the exciting things about the part of technology, that it's going to make things safer. Many of you have adaptive cruise control in your car already. Many of you have blind spot mirrors with the lights that light up. Just 4 or 5 years ago, that was, upscale, high-end vehicles that had that technology. Now that's becoming more standard, which is safety. One of the neat things about the technology of what we're doing with the signals that talk to vehicles, of which the OEMs now are putting that technology in their vehicles. Toyota is the biggest proponent of that. Toyota, Lexus, Volkswagen, some of the European automakers are already deploying that technology, and Audi was one of the ones that's an early deployment, and they actually took the software data that we were using to predict that arrive on green traffic signal. That will be in their new model line. So they've actually taken technology developed that we worked on in the DOT, and it's going to be in their new vehicle. So, you know, you won't have to sit there and look at the pedestrian crosswalk countdown timer to figure out when you can step on it and go. You'll be like the Eastbound and Down song. You'll be ready to go because your car will know when to go. And in a level of automation, your car will go for you when the coast is clear. And that's sort of scary to think about, but that technology is here today, folks, and it's going to make life safer for us, but it's going to be a new future. And that future, James, is, again, the wild, wild west of what the technology is. I think, as the chairman said, from a legislative point of view, they have to work hard to figure out what's the right environment. The autonomous vehicle legislation was very friendly, business-friendly, as Georgia is, so that we can be innovators and not prohibited. And if you talk to these tech companies, they don't want to be inhibited from being able to, innovate. They'll find another state to do that in. So Georgia's taking a very pro-business thing. And lastly, I would just commend you at the Chamber with Scott Evans and the focus on technology. We're building a relationship with GDOT, with you here in the Forsyth County Chamber, how we focus on technology, leverage the great assets of the human capital and businesses you have here in Forsyth County, and how can that translate back and forth to transportation. So we thank you for that partnership.
Thank you. Thank all three of you very much, and I hope you'll stick around. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and as a reminder to everybody, you've got these cards and pens at your table. If you'll go ahead and write your questions, a few minutes, our team's going to come around to collect those. Thank all three of you again. Please join me in thanking our panel. Thank you.
Nothing like following three pioneers in transportation. And I just heard they solicited questions, so I don't know if I'm going to be up here answering the questions on behalf of those three guys or not. So this might be a curveball for me in reality, literally and figuratively. So are y'all ready to hear some more about transportation? Thank you for having me here to speak today. Thank you to Mr. McCoy with the Chamber, the Forsyth Commission, Board Member Mr. Bowen, our Commissioner McMurray, the sponsors, college, local officials, and the staff that's with me here today, especially for Miss Katie for assistance preparing this presentation. And for a gentleman who's not here, Matt Needham, for his drone skills that we'll see in just a moment. So just a little about me. I'm a relatively local guy. My family did have land in Forsyth County pre-Lake Lanier, and then they were forced to move once the lake came. Don't hold this against me, but I graduated from Georgia Tech, and I became a, thank you, a registered engineer in 2003. I've been with this agency for over 22 years in various roles, various offices. I enjoy hunting, watching my kids play sports. I got 3 kids. They all play multiple sports, so you know where I am when I am not at work. I like to exercise, and a side note, I finished my one and only Ironman in 2015. So on to the purpose of why I'm here today. Let me find the clicker. I don't see a clicker. All right, located. So a little about us. We have one district office over in Gainesville. We have 4 area offices. We've been in the new office on Jesse Jewell for about a year and a half now. We have 2,310 lane miles in 21 counties, as we're responsible for the maintenance and construction of the infrastructure within those. Our district has about a $50 million budget annually. 27 of that is our maintenance budget. And 16 to 18 of the 27 is discretionary type money that we use for invitation to bid and rapid response maintenance contracts, like vegetation management, slab replacement, and pavement preservation. We have 427 employee positions on our org chart, and we're supplemented by about another 85 consultant members. So today I'd like to update you on what's in the pipeline, what we're actively working on, specifically here in Forsyth County. First, we'll show you a video of the bridge demolition of Bowling Mill. You're actually only the second group that's ever seen this video. Then we'll go over a few pre-construction projects in three broad categories, which are resurfacing, widening, and bridge projects. Who says construction projects take a long time? Isn't that a really cool video? I felt like it was. For as long as I've been at the department, the rating system in which we use to score our roads is called PACES, and it was a labor-intensive manual system. We have nearly completed the transition to a much more detailed electronic system, which gives us what we call an OCI, an overall condition index. The technology behind this new assessment is pretty amazing. Resurfacing dollars are spent based upon that rating in conjunction with the priority of the route. Routes are prioritized into one of four categories. We have critical, high, medium, and low. Based on that model, there are two program projects upcoming in Forsyth County, as you see, State Route 20 and State Route 53. 20 was recently let in March, and 53 is expected to let this summer. As you already know better than anyone, two primary arterials to be expanded in the county are State Route 9 and State Route 20. As you can see, State Route 9 is broken into four phases, beginning at the Fulton County line and extending to 20 and coming. Right-of-way acquisition for those projects are being done in our house, and that is ongoing for all four phases. Here you can see the 20 corridor, which is phased into 6 projects from Canton to Cumming. One project is entirely in Forsyth County that goes from 371 to North Corners Parkway, which is just west of the square. The other one starts at 369 and then goes to 371. The construction of the 20 corridor will begin at the ends and work toward the middle. Construction for both of the Forsyth pieces total about $147 million today. Right-of-way acquisition is in the early stages for both of those projects. 20 will be widened to 3 lanes with sidewalks, and we expect another round of public meetings for this project this late summer or early fall. I'm told there will be video simulation at these public meetings. One bridge that is not in construction at the moment, but is on the books, is a bridge over Setting Down Creek on 369. An on-site detour will be in place as the new bridge is built to the south, so vehicles will not be impacted by the construction as much as they'll continue to be able to use the existing bridge until the new bridge is open. As Mr. Coleman mentioned previously, here are some of the projects that GDOT and the county are partners on. The county's the sponsor, and the department is contributing to the right-of-way and/or construction costs. Typically, more projects can be delivered when a partnership exists and in a more timely manner. This is because one entity may have funds toward the beginning of the project and can get started while the other entity can have funds later and can finish it up. It's a shared interest atmosphere. These are projects owned and operated by our maintenance office in the district. If you've seen slabs that were placed on I-985, then you kind of know what to expect out of this. The upgrade of 400 when the widening project took place did not rehabilitate any of the ramps. We're going to assemble a project to begin replacing cracked and broken slabs on the 400 ramps in Forsyth County, and we forecast that work to begin winter of 2020, FY 2020. We've completed or near completing vegetation management on I-85, I-985, and 10 Loop in Athens, and 400 is where we have our target, we've targeted next, and we anticipate starting that later this calendar year. And then lastly, there's a pavement preservation project on 369. We understand that the public has concerns about striping and RPMs, two of the most important pieces that you see on the road. Here you see the routes on the list for fiscal year 2020. Now this is in addition to any resurfacing that we have because new stripes and RPMs are always placed in a resurfacing project. So just a bit of a trivia. Who knows which way mileposts run and where they start? Nobody from DOT can answer this. Very good. South to north or west to east. And for state routes, they restart at a county line, and for interstates, they restart at state lines. Quick response projects are ones we can design and deliver out of the district office that is scoped to target primarily small safety and operational needs. They're capped at $200,000, but often yield a high benefit cost ratio. We've had many successful quick response projects in this county. As you can see, we have more planned. Some of these are shelf ready when funding becomes available this summer. So I'm going to ask you, can you keep a secret? So just between us, we use other districts' money when they don't exhaust all their funds. So just please don't tell our commissioner this, but we've done it for several years. The final pre-construction project I'd like to share with you today involves ground-in-place rumble strips. These are a safety feature that helps reduce crashes, both head-on and run-off-the-road crashes, which are two of our most severe crashes. You'll begin to see these placed on all resurfacing projects as well. I actually tested some out on 369 coming over here today just to wake up my group. So here are the routes that are let to construction in May of this year. And we're placing these actually throughout the state on resurfacing projects. Oftentimes before a project is programmed, a study is completed. And many times studies originate from the public when they call in about a operational or a safety concern. So we have some ongoing studies in Forsyth County. For safety, we have 3 locations, as you can see, on State Route 9, a couple of locations on 141 and 20, and then previously signal timing was mentioned. RTOP does work inside this county, but I want you to know that our signal team is always looking to adjust timing to maximize efficiency in the county on corridors that are connected. Now I'd like to thank Matt Needham once again for his drone skills and Katie for her video production skills. And we're going to show you a glimpse of what active projects we have going on. So I want to remind you of one thing before I close. As a motorist, please drive alert and arrive alive. And if you're a pedestrian, please see and be seen. If you're making a right-hand turn specifically, look for pedestrians. You might be seeing me. I have had many close encounters running and people turning right and never look at me. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope I've educated you just a little bit on what your partners at GDOT are doing and what we have going on inside your county. Please, please do not hesitate to reach out to me if I can assist you in any way. Appreciate your time.
Brandon, thank you, and we are very glad to have you. I'm going to come down on the floor. We're going to go through this as quickly as we possibly can. We just have a few minutes. But I do want to, and if you have questions, please go ahead and raise them. We'll get through as many as we possibly can. We have a couple of members of our team who are also walking around with mics for those who will be answering the questions. So I'm going to start with a few that I know have been asked or discussed in the community quite a bit, but I do not believe have ever been asked at one of our summits. So I want to try to highlight those first. First, what can be done to work with utilities to be more cooperative and responsive to counties and local government who are trying to get utilities relocated incidental to road construction? And I'm sure there will be some discussion about that. We also, I think we have one utility in the room, so they may want to address this question as well. So who would like to take that? Yeah, Commissioner. Sure.
Thanks for the easy question. How many of us enjoy not having water at your house? How many of you don't enjoy when your cable TV goes out? Now, at my house, what happens if the internet goes out? Everybody's unhappy. It's not a good day, right? So the question around utilities is a big coordination question. And I can only speak for the state. Each county sort of handles utilities differently, so I can't speak for Forsyth County. I would say that Georgia has one of the most advanced utility coordination programs in the nation because we get to talk to other states, and we know that. But we do a lot of effort up front is when we have conceptual plans to send out to utilities. Our district office, Brandon and his district utility engineer actually do quarterly meetings with utilities to bring them in and say, here's the projects that we're going to be working on in the future. Put it on your horizon, put a pin on the calendar that we're going to be working there. And as soon as we have enough plans, we share those with utility companies and ask for them to locate their utilities on the plans. Often we pick those up when our surveyors are out there, be it us or our consultants. So we sort of know what those are, but then what's the relocation part of that? So it begins early on, and it means that you need to communicate very early. Because in our case as the state, we allow utilities on the right-of-way by permit. So we permit them to use and enjoy the public right-of-way, and there's permit fees associated with that. Depends on what utility you are, what type of utility you are based on what those fees are. And so for that permit agreement to use the right-of-way, the utilities have an agreement that they have to relocate if we do an expansion project or the right-of-way needs to expand and the utilities have to be adjusted. So we actually build those into what we call a utility adjustment schedule. We hear from each utility, be it public and private, and we try to build those into our schedule. We provide those to our contractors at the time of bid so they understand the time it takes to move utilities. And that's why I started with the question I asked, because nobody likes a service disruption. There are certain service disruptions that are absolutely critical. If you've got a dialysis center, you've got Northside Hospital right around the corner, those kind of services you just can't disrupt. So it's usually, that's a lot of the frustration too. People see is like, hey, I see a lot of orange barrels, I see some clearing, and nobody's out there working. There's no bulldozers moving dirt. Well, the first things that have to move is what's underground and what's overhead to make room to do that work. And it takes time because of Nobody likes service disruption. So that's a quick overview. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of other things that happen. Every now and then there's a hurricane or a tornado, and a lot of resources may get pulled away from northeast Georgia. And we've had that, regrettably, with tornadoes last year, and keep naming the M hurricanes. If it's a hurricane with an M, it comes to Georgia for some reason, if it's named with an M. So that's from at least our point of view. I know the county probably has other approaches, and cities may have a different approach, but that's how we approach it. It is a process. It is a lot of coordination, and we try to do the best we can, but sometimes there are delays just for multitudes of reasons.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to field that? All right. The 285 and 400 project really seems to be moving along well. Is it on schedule or ahead of schedule? What is the anticipated completion date?
I'll just stay up here. So 285, 400 you are seeing the fruits of a lot of labor, and it's going to get even more busy over this summer months as they fast approach. You can see the bridges coming up out of the ground. You can see it taking shape. The project is running behind schedule for different reasons as well, not utility related, by the way. But our anticipated forecasted completion is December of next year, 2020. So a lot of work to be done. This was a public-private partnership again. It's all sum total, I think it's about a $700 million project where the developer is actually financing part of this project, and after it's complete, we pay them back over about a 3-year period for the work. It's the first puzzle piece that helps express lanes for 285 and ultimately the express lanes that will come down 400. And the project in itself will provide tremendous relief in congestion because it separates where you exit to and from 400 to 285 and from 285 to 400. Some about 4 or 5 miles up 400 and about 4 miles or so on 285. You'll make those exits well in advance of that. Separate the exiting traffic and the entering traffic from that one point of intersection that exists today, and you get rid of some of those loop ramps that come in on the left side that are sort of non-traditional. So that will be a big congestion reliever in itself, but it was really the first piece of the bigger pieces of which the project's up 400 and the project on 285.
Thank you very much. The next question, we just have a couple of minutes left. So recently a new economic development plan was developed with the county that has that is still in process. It has not been formally adopted. And one of the items in that, one of the suggestions is redesignation of Georgia 400 to become an interstate highway spur, like I-985. And so how could you help with that strategic plan's call for State Route 400 to become, in this case 485, interstate in order to better attract companies here?
Okay, I'd heard about that. So designation of interstates doesn't happen through the State Department of Transportation. It happens through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And I would just say to you that that's probably a long shot. I can tell you that there was a study commissioned by Congress that just came out late last year focusing on the future of the interstates in this nation. And the outcome of that report was to reduce and probably eliminate lesser served interstates. So some of those one-offs that don't connect state to state. And that the focus was that all the funding should go to those core interstates that connect multiple states. So I don't think there's an appetite to expand the interstate system at a national level. And again, that's a national conversation. And interestingly enough, designations of U.S. routes and interstates go through a big committee process. So you have to demonstrate a lot of the metrics of why you would want to do that. And I don't know enough about your study to speak to that, but I think what attracts business the best, and I think that's probably the outcome you want, is mobility. You want people that say, I can move, I can travel, you know, here's the options, the opportunities that we have, because obviously business industry wants that, they want good access and good mobility. So I think the efforts would be better focused on how do we continue to partner as we've talked about today, and I would just say congratulations to see everybody here today, because 6 years ago, there was a much smaller crowd, and we had hardly anything to talk about. So this is a lot better 6 years later, because there's a lot to talk about, lots of partnership, and certainly we will be glad to partner with you in the economic development study, and whatever that is, to figure out how we continue to improve mobility. And we can still talk about the interstate discussion, but that rises to a little bit different level.
And one last question. I assume, Commissioner, this will probably be, you'll probably want to weigh in on this. And the reason so this question, we received a number of questions. This one sort of encompasses a lot of the different questions. It also, I think, leads nicely, and Eric, you may want to address it as well in your closing comments. But Forsyth County residents several years ago approved, this says $200 million, but I think it was actually 108, to us $200 million transportation bond to widen Georgia 400 and a number of other projects. Now that there is the discussion of a widening for the purpose of a toll, there has been a sort of the question has come up many times about, we just paid for the widening of it, then there's going to be this additional project coming along. And so the question that is asked here is, should the state help, I put this in quotes, repay our county by taking the express lanes to exit 14 or higher? Also saying that, you know, of course, we'll be participating through paying the toll as well. So it is a question that has come up in the past. I don't think we've ever addressed that here before, but since it's come up in the past, I thought it would be a good question to address today. Yeah.
Thanks for all these easy questions. Eric? No, I'm just kidding. So let me go back to the bold action back in, I guess that was 2014. Referendum was in 2014 for the bond. I'm getting nods. Time flies by. But that was so bold because back then, that was before what we talked about, the Transportation Funding Act of 2015. Everybody was trying to rub a couple of nickels together to do something. And that precipitated the conversation with the Board of Commissioners. And I would say from that point forward, this partnership has been fantastic. I'm looking mainly at this table right here. It's been a fantastic partnership to see how we continue to leverage each other's dollars. So to the notion on 400 express lanes, which barely come up to McFarland, as I talked about, we haven't contemplated taking them further in the current financial model. I remind you that was a financed project, so we have to pay that back. That's not something that couldn't happen in the future, and there's a way maybe to do that, to continue to expand the systems. As I said, life's a highway, it's a journey. So we were on this journey on a financial model that got us at least up to McFarland Road. And with the added bonus of the 6-lane now, which again, without the partnership, it would not be built today. And just think about what 400 would be today, because I drive it, I know what it's like. Even though it's 6 lanes, it's still heavily congested, right? But just think about what if it was today 4 lanes. That economic development discussion we just had, nobody would want to be talking about an interstate, because the mobility would be tremendously worse. So, and then the part about paying it forward, we totally get it. When I did this presentation a few years ago, I looked at the sort of the return on your $200 million. Well, I can tell you State Route 9 is $160 million for 4 projects. State Route 20 from Canton to Cumming, and I know that's not all for Forsyth County, $440 million. And so you've leveraged your $200 million very well with GDOT, and we still remember that, because when the county commissioners come to the table, and we meet regularly, they're coming to the table not with their hand out, but with a hand up to help and say, we've got this much money. How much can you bring? How much do we leverage together? And I applaud your county commission for doing that. There's 158 other counties, and I get to visit with most of them throughout the year, and most of them say, we don't have anything, but we want this, 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 and this. It's much easier to work with a county like Forsyth County by saying, we can bring this, or we can do the design, like you heard about on Post Road. We're going to do, The county is advancing the design. They're teeing it up for success because there's always more funding opportunities that can come forward. And you're positioned and you're ready for success. So we do look at that leverage. We do think about that payback. And I think you've done pretty good, probably 3 or 4-fold from when we were talking about this in 2014. So, but that's the 400 corridor discussion. We'd love to have it. Chris Tomlinson will be glad to talk about expanding the ability for express lanes throughout this region. And the future is bright for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, thank you. I'm sure all of our speakers are going to hang around for a little bit for those of you who had other questions, but that did cover largely the waterfront. I am very pleased to turn the microphone over to our county manager, Mr. Eric Johnson. Thank you. Yeah.
I was kind of scared to come up here because my preferred mode of transportation involves 2 hiking sticks and the Appalachian Trail, and I'm just happy not to hear banjo music in the background. So I'm to close out. I've got like 5 minutes or less. There's 2 things I want to talk about. There's a last puzzle piece to kind of tie back to what Russell mentioned earlier, but more importantly, I want to thank all of the people that made today happen. We can't get out of here without thanking the people that have done this, and so there's the Chamber that's the host, the Rotary Club of South Forsyth, and they get to close out the meeting in a moment. All of the presenters, I think we've had a wealth of current information and the opportunity to see technology. I know that my communications staff are enjoying their drone just as GDOT's staff are enjoying their drone. But a lot of the communications staff and the various organizations that came together to pull this all together today. And I was going to say elected officials, it's actually elected leaders that make all of these projects happen. And I have my 5 bosses sitting here, and I appreciate the opportunity they give me and our staff to be successful in the area of transportation. Senators, representatives who took time out of your schedule to be here today, and ultimately Commissioner Mills, because today's agenda was pulled together by Commissioner Mills convincing people how valuable this is to our community to come and speak today. So thank all of you that have made this happen. We've had the opportunity to hear about what the state's doing, what the county is doing. We've had the opportunity to hear about ATL and how the ATL will literally transform the Atlanta metropolitan area. But there's another puzzle piece, and I'm not a planner, I'm not an engineer, I'm actually an economist. But I want to tie 3 community values together, one of which is the purpose of today's meeting, transportation, but other 2 relate to health, and you're seeing a little bit of video that kind of celebrate the health that we have in this community, and ultimately economic prosperity, which ties back to the Chamber and our other partners. Each year, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation rates and ranks counties throughout the United States. And they work in conjunction with the University of Wisconsin Population Health Institute to issue that report. And it came out a couple of weeks ago. For the 7th consecutive year, this is the healthiest county in the state of Georgia. And we should celebrate that. Unfortunately, you saw a District 1 map that showed Oconee County, and they're nipping at our heels. We far surpass them when it comes to health outcomes, but when it comes to health ratings, they've actually surpassed us in a few areas. So we can celebrate our success at the same time. What we need to do is, as you've heard some people talk, we need to drill down into the data and understand we may be strong, but we can be stronger. And there's some areas that actually tie to transportation that I want to bring to your attention. One of the metrics looks at the number of workers who commute in their car alone each day. How many of us drove alone in our car today? 2 or 3, okay. That's a negative health factor, to drive alone in your car, because it's the most stressful time of the day, despite all the efforts of all the agencies that are trying to make us able to get where we need to go. Even worse, though, is, and let me just say, the most recent data suggests that in Forsyth County, about 79,000 people get in a car and commute to work by themselves. But worse are those that have long commutes. And a long commute, for the purpose of these health rankings, is 30 minutes or more. And I'm not going to ask how many people do that. Fortunately, I live in the county and I work downtown and I can make it in 15 minutes. But too many people take more than 30 minutes to get where they're going. Nationally, it's about 35% of solo commuters who have a 30-minute or longer commute. In the state of Georgia, so that's 35%. State of Georgia, 42%. Forsyth County, I'm seeing if there's something step on. We're at 51%. 51% of people who commute to work alone in a car have more than a 30-minute commute. So what can we do about that? We've heard about mobility. We've heard about the options available. I will tell you that we're looking at partnering with Waze to allow technology to be used to help people connect for commuting purposes. But there's another thing we do. We partner with the Chamber of Commerce. We partner with the Development Authority. We partner with businesses in this community. And again, I'm an economist, so what's the most cost-effective way to deal with transportation? We each impact transportation in two essential ways: the number of trips we make each day and the length of those trips. I've just talked about people that sit in their car by themselves for more than 30 minutes. I don't know if I was in my car alone because I was talking to our communications directors and using, I was not holding the phone, so I think I was legal, but I think I still qualify as a solo commuter. Well, when we bring jobs to this community, using the Economic Development Ordinance that the board just updated last Thursday night, they adopted it for the first time last year. They updated it Thursday night. Last night, the board tweaked and finalized the criteria that will allow us to celebrate what are the target industries that we want to bring to our community and what is a high-paying job. And so we're working with the Chamber, we're working with the Development Authority, we're working with businesses, because if we can shorten people's commutes, every element of that trip that someone doesn't have to take, we've just freed up capacity on that segment of a road. And even if a lot of the freeing up of segments is in North Fulton, because we stop people from driving to North Fulton because they can work here in our community, we've got a triple win. I'll go back to a baseball analogy. It's a triple play, except the triple play is only good for one team. But this will be good for us. We can improve people's health because they're not spending so much time alone in their car. We can improve economic opportunities with our community, because when we create jobs in our community, there's a multiplier effect. It's not just the job that someone takes at the new business that moved to town, but the multiplier effect through all the industries that are already here that are impacted and create additional jobs. But ultimately, we're freeing up capacity in our transportation network, and that's ultimately the most cost-effective thing we can do. So to kind of close out today, I just want to point out that we are going to continue to work as a community to improve people's health by getting them off the roads as much as we can. We're going to look at the opportunity to improve the economy by bringing those jobs to our community. And ultimately, we're going to look at health, economic opportunity, and freeing up transportation on the network so that the existing commitment to transportation improvements can go as far as they can go. Thank you for coming today and showing your support.
This is TV Forsyth, your county connection.